I wanted to thank those of you showing up early and on time for today's training about influencing the requirements. When you do show up early and on time, if you don't know this, first off, it just makes me feel good and my team feel good. We appreciate that you do. But the second thing is the LinkedIn pushes this training out to other people and says, hey, we're live. Come join us live so you can be part of the community as well as the training. And I encourage those of you who are not on LinkedIn to make sure you come over and connect with us on LinkedIn, because that's where the activity happens. That's where you can interact with community. It's where I can make introductions, etc. In today's training, we're going to be talking about how to wire federal opportunities to your strengths. One of the things that you run into if you've been in this business long enough is you're going to look at an opportunity from SAM or from wherever, and you're going to look at it and go, I feel like it's wired to somebody else. Like somebody else helped the government write this, although that never happens, right? I feel like it's wired to another company. It's wired to the incumbent or a particular type of company. It's wired to anybody but me. It's wired to the competitor. And there's this great line, right? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean no one's chasing you. And it's the same thing here. Just because you think it's wired doesn't mean it's not wired. It could be very well wired, but that doesn't matter. And I have a whole separate training where I talk about how to knock the incumbent out of the competition there. But even if you feel like it's wired, right? That's not a bad thing, right? One of the things you want to do in government contracting and sales in general is you want to take opportunities that you would like to win and that are good for your company, and you want to wire them in your favor, or you want to de-wire them. And I'll talk about this in detail going forward. But the idea of wiring them is to make it play to your strengths, and the idea of de-wiring them is to avoid your weaknesses, right? That's the whole idea. You want to figure out if there's things that are in the opportunity that are wired to the competition. De-wiring is like identifying those and try to pull them out early in the acquisition life cycle. One of the things that's really important when people like me use the term wiring, right? And I'm totally comfortable saying, get out there and wire an opportunity. There's nothing wrong with wiring it. Sometimes there's problems people have in their head about a word and they say it means this, but wiring is basically just influencing. You're influencing an opportunity so it plays to your strengths and it avoids your weaknesses. There's nothing illegal about this, and there's nothing unethical about this. This is really only done when you get in and have a conversation with the program office and give them data and evidence that they start saying, you know what, I think we should go this direction instead of this direction, right? I could use a different word than wire, but wiring is what we use when we feel like it's done against us. And so I want you to think of it as a positive thing. What are we doing to wire this opportunity in our favor? Nothing illegal, nothing unethical, nothing. I like to say, toe the line and take a full step back, right? Don't ever even lean over the line. And so when you think about wiring, think of it as just influencing. So today's training, I'm going to talk to you about why it's important that you influence requirements in the opportunities you want to go after. The second thing I'm going to cover down is when can you start influencing those requirements, and when should you? And then the last thing I want to tackle is I got 12 different tips on what you could wire or de-wire as we go forward. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training. I provide tips for success to people just like you. For 20 years, I've been in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When you follow a process, you'll have predictable, repeatable success. And that's what I want for you. Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling here on why you want to influence the requirements of opportunities, right? We call it wiring sometimes. One of the main reasons is because you want to play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. And what this really means is if you're looking at an opportunity and you have strengths that are related to that government requirement that's coming out, or you know it's coming down the pike, right? If you have strengths that can really shape that opportunity, or that you want them to be considering, so that when you write the proposal, you're able to then write a proposal with your strengths in it, you need to get those strengths put in early on. And I'll talk about how to do some of that. But a reason you influence is to make sure that you're playing to the strengths. And also you want to be able to get rid of any weaknesses. All of us have strengths and weaknesses within our organization. And it's really important for you to be able to understand what yours are. And if there's a particular weakness, you can get rid of it. An example might be a certification, right? You might not have a certification. That's a weakness. Or you might have the certification. That's a strength. And so using that example, you can play to your strengths or you can play to your weaknesses by getting that certification put in or pulled out. That's wiring it or de-wiring it. Another reason why you want to influence the requirements of a government opportunity or federal opportunity is to reduce the competition. If you can put something in to the opportunity into the technical requirements, right? I'm not even talking about acquisition for the moment. And actually, if I take a break for 1 second, you can influence an opportunity that's in your pipeline in two ways: on the technical requirements and on the acquisition approach, right? So I'm separating them out. I've done whole trainings on how to influence the acquisition approach, how they buy. Here, it's about what they buy, but you want to reduce the competition. So, when you put something in, let's just stick with a certification as an example. If you put in something that says you should be Microsoft Gold, and really that's important, and you talk to the program office, you're letting them know why it's important, right? Or why it's not important. But when you put it in, there's only so many Microsoft Gold partners. And so now it reduces the competition. The other reason for influencing or wiring a requirement or trying to influence it is because you want to discourage your competition. This is all just friendly, normal sales, right? You're trying to reduce the competition. If you could reduce it literally to one company, yours, you'd be okay with that, right? And so these things that you will be learning today, or that you'll be executing on opportunities in your pipeline, these are things that can reduce the competition by just completely eliminating them or discouraging them, right? You might put something in or encourage something to be put into the requirements that people start looking at it and they go, oh, that's wired. And because they didn't watch my training where I said you can beat the opportunities that are wired if you're the best of the best, they get discouraged and they go, you know what, let's not go after that. That one looks wired. There's nothing wrong with an opportunity that's wired that you pursue if you know that you're the best at the best. The whole separate topic. But I like this idea of trying to discourage the competition. One part is eliminating them out. They cannot play. The other is they will not play. They don't want to play. They take their ball and they go home. The third or the fifth one here, the fifth bullet on why you want to influence the requirements is that you can increase your win probability, right? No fancy terms. It's just how probable is it that you're going to win? And the more stuff you can get put in that represent your strengths, and the more stuff you can get taken out that reflect on your weaknesses, the higher likelihood that you're going to win, right? The more you increase that win probability. I don't like the term P-win at all. That's why I don't say it in there. But your probability of winning. I think we're going to win more and more the more stuff we get put in that is just screaming our company's the best at this. And that goes to the last bullet, right? Maximizing your winning proposal score. I have a whole bunch of trainings on winning proposal scores where I say you should use a winning proposal score in your pipeline and not a P-win. P-win's kind of made up, but a winning proposal score, it's calculated. You have to sit there and do certain things in order for that score to go. You cannot guess what that score is. It's calculated based on facts. For example, did you meet with the program office? If you did not, then you can't maximize a certain part of the winning proposal score. But when you start getting in and influencing the customer, that increases the calculations that I have on a winning proposal score. And a winning proposal score, let me just see if I can back up easily. A winning proposal score is really impacts the proposal right here. What I say is you don't want to just submit proposals to the government. You want to submit winning proposals. That means proposals when the government gets it, they're going to go, oh my God, I wish I could award this contract to this company. But, I got a couple of companies that have winning proposal scores. And so you want to be driving your opportunity through the pipeline in a way that it increases the likelihood or maximizes your winning proposal score. So these are just some reasons on why you want to influence the opportunity. The next one is when and how. And so I just want to put this down as you look out into your pipeline and you say, well, how can I influence or when can I influence the opportunities? Most importantly, really, it's just it's like voting early and often. You want to be in there as early as possible in the life cycle, right? And so if you haven't seen this diagram before, this is an example of one of the federal agencies' processes or acquisition life cycle, right? It's their roadmap, acquisition roadmap. I've got a whole separate training where I walk through this and I talk about it. But one of the things I want you to be paying attention to is that you can start moving backwards in this roadmap, getting to the earliest stages. Here it says team formation. That's not even the earliest stage, right? If you go before that, this is the earliest stage in the formal process. If you go before that, there's this idea stage, this ideation stage where the program office is thinking about where they want to go. They haven't even got formal yet. They're just talking about where they want to go. You want to get in that early. I put in here that you want to be looking 12 to 24 months out. And the reason I say this is this training in particular, right? It's important for you to pay attention to what I'm teaching, but it doesn't go out. I mean, it's not designed for like, hey, you got an opportunity that's coming down in 3 months or even 6 months, right? 6 months is really close. If an opportunity is dropping in 6 months, you can absolutely do this, but that's like the latest or the shortest time frame. If you really want to shape your requirements and the opportunities in your favor, then you want to give yourself a decent amount of run room. And so that's why you look at your pipeline and make sure not only do you have opportunities that are going to be the RFP will drop in the next couple of months, but you want RFPs that are dropping pretty much every month for the next 24 to 36 months. And that's not hard when you start looking out and you're looking at recompetes, et cetera. And so when you're able to look farther out, you're able to engage in this process for 12 to 24 months. And the reason this is important is that third bullet, you're building strategic relationships. These strategic relationships are with teammates who could help you, but with contracting officers in there, with program office personnel. It takes a little while to get to know those program office personnel or to even meet them and then to begin to turn it from a contact into a person I know to a strategic relationship, right? And so you want to give yourself time to build those strategic relationships where they know, like, and trust you, which will put them in a position to start having candid conversations with you. The government is allowed to do this during market research. They're encouraged to engage with industry, but not a lot of people are going to engage with you if they don't know, like, and trust you. So give yourself time to build that into the strategic relationships that you're developing. And the last tip I just had here about how to influence is just meet frequently with these people. So let's say you have an opportunity. If I had an opportunity in my pipeline, I'd be aiming to have 10, maybe 20, but 10 people who are in the government, in the program office area, either the direct program office or dotted lines off of that main program office. I would want to know who they are and begin to meet with them. I said frequently, and that word might be a little bit confusing. What I mean is continuously meet with them, steadily meet with them. I don't need you to meet with them every single week kind of thing, but this idea of tracking on them. How can I stay in front of them? How can I continue to build our relationship stronger and stronger so we can have more candid conversations about their challenges and goals, maybe how our solutions fit or how we've been helping other customers. It allows us to have these conversations. And I don't mean like I'm off having a beer and it's a secret conversation. I mean, I'm in your office and we're talking about your needs. That's where you're going, right? And so you could do this by being in the office and having meetings. You can engage with them on LinkedIn or do things on LinkedIn that attract them to what you're sharing. I share things on LinkedIn every day, but my primary audience are small businesses in the government contracting space. When you share stuff, is your primary target audience for what you share on LinkedIn, is that audience related to what you sell? So if you do cybersecurity, you should not be posting what I post. You should be posting cybersecurity tips or, what does RMF of the future look like, et cetera, so that you're attracting the people who you would want to have those conversations with. You can also think about events, right? The Air Force has a big event down in Florida. You go down there and it is geared towards Air Force personnel and industries allowed in. So when you go down there, you're able to meet these people, you're developing relationships like, oh, hey, I see you again. Let's talk for a little bit. Let's talk 5 minutes. Can we get 30 minutes over there? At the break, whatever it is, when you start meeting with these people on a regular basis, you develop those into strategic relationships, which allow you to have the conversations about their opportunities so that you can wire them. You can shape them in the way I'm about to talk about, or I'll give you some of those. So, by the way, if this chart here, if you go to my previous training, and you can go to my featured section to find the previous trainings, but if you go in there and look at the acquisition lifecycle, there's a handout you can nab for that. Okay, so for the last half of the training, because we end right at 12:30, I want to talk about what to wire or dewire in the requirements, right? What to influence in the requirements. We also call this shaping the requirements, right? How can I shape the requirements? And you're shaping it. If you've got a square hole, that's your solution. You're trying to shape the government's requirements into a square so that we fit together and it makes sense that we're a match there. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I have 12 ways that I just wrote down to get you thinking about how you can wire or dewire. And I'll go back and forth saying this as I go along, but keep in mind, anything that you have, you can wire it for you. Anything you don't have that I say, like this first one, organizational certificates, you can dewire. So every single thing you can sit there and say, I want it in or I want it out. So the first one on shaping the requirements here is organizational certifications, right? This is a good one. When I'm working with a customer and I'm talking to them about their projects and they're coming down, I might stress the fact that you should have an ISO certification, and I'll tell them which certification they should have, or CMMI is a software development certification. I might sit there and say, hey, you should look at a CMMI level 2 or level 3 or something. This is the requirement that I would recommend you have. And so in there, not only am I just trying to get them to put it in, but I'm trying to stress why. And I'll give you a quick example I did with a customer with ISO, right? It wasn't enough that we pushed ISO certification because this is a project that is process intensive. And so you want a company that is proven through certification that they have the ISO certification. But there's a lot of people out there now that have ISO certification. So what we did was we got the customer to say, you need to demonstrate your continuous commitment to the ISO certification. Demonstrate to us what you do on a regular basis to ensure you're compliant with the ISO certification, that you didn't just get it, right? And they put that in. And so you can do that kind of stuff in there. The next one, individual certifications, right? So if you have organizational level certifications, you might look at the people. So if I'm looking at a whole bunch of staff people coming on, I might say things, I don't know if I say this lower on security clearances, but I might say you need to have a TSSCI, right? And here's a great example of how to wire this. I had a large contract with DoD, and all of it was TSSCI, and it was crazy. And it's going to be tough. We got lucky, we won it. But one of the things that I realized I could do from this experience, I didn't do it in it, but I learned this lesson coming out of it, is when I got the contract, it said I needed not just 20 TSSCIs. If you understand security clearances, there's another one called Yankee White, and that's the one that was for these folks. And so when I started the project, when I went in, I said, hey, why don't we just have 3 people who are Yankee White and the rest of them work at my site, because we're doing software development and we still have to run through NSA or DHS scans to come in. So why don't they work here? And these 3 people are responsible for on-site face-to-face stuff and moving the software through the system. And these people stay off. We'll lower your costs so you don't have to process security clearances or any of this other stuff. So you're able to go in and talk about it. The flip side is, if I had the Yankee White clearances, I might go in and say, hey, you want to make sure they're Yankee White cleared right from the start so that they have the proper clearance. So day one, they're executing. Otherwise, you're going to launch the contract. And ours was a fixed price contract. So that meant you were paying us from day one, even though we weren't having all our people billable that we envisioned when we did that, right? And so those kind of delays cost the government money. If you can give them data and evidence on why they should have certifications or have these things, that'll resonate, right? It goes back to the tip of the day. You can have anything you want in there as long as you help enough other people get what they want. And one of the things they want is data and evidence on why what you're recommending is a good decision. So number 3, key personnel, and this continues that, right? You might try to get more key personnel that are needed in there. You know, like if you've got a contract, it's got 20 people on there, you might try to get 4 or 5 key personnel in there. These are good because if you've got a strong team and you can shift people really fast into contracts from other contracts, and you don't have to go out to the market to hire people, right? You can really stress that up. And remember, this is about discouraging competition a little bit and also trying to wire it a little bit to you. So if you can give them a reason on why they should call this person a key personnel. Usually they say the program manager is a key personnel, which I find is kind of funny because it's the least, yes, I get they do important work. But if I've got a cyber project, there's a couple of cyber personnel I would say are key personnel. And that's what I mean. You want to influence that, but you also want to add description into what they have. I have a customer a couple of years ago where there was a certification that I think it was like 150 people in the world have this certification, but there's a similar certification that like 90 or 100,000 people had. And so what we did is we noticed that we went in and tried to get that certification taken out, because when it's in, it's being wired to a certain group of people. And what we did is said, hey, most of your own employees in the government only have this certification that we want in. This other one is so unique. It's like, you know, getting a doctorate or something. It's like, you know, do you really need a doctorate to do this work? I don't know. So number 4 is proprietary technology. And this one goes down here with number 11 as well, established OEM partnerships. So you might try to influence that there should be certain technology that is used. If you're in elevator maintenance, right? Maybe it's a particular type of elevator because this elevator does this type of thing. You can begin to try to shape that. And if you can get a proprietary technology, or what a lot of people do is they put in the features that when you look at it, it aligns to just one type of product. But if you can justify why this technology is the best one, then it goes with number 11, where you might also sit there and say, hey, anybody who's coming in should have an established partnership with the OEM, the original manufacturer, right? I think it stands for original equipment manufacturer, but OEM is like whoever makes the elevator, or Microsoft, who makes the software. But if you can say, hey, we've got a partnership with this manufacturer, not just to be able to resell it, but to be able to influence the entire direction they're going. If you've got a problem, we've got direct access to their product people. That kind of relationship, if you can get that put in, you're now beginning to wire it towards you. Again, you want to watch for it, because if you don't have those things, then get them pulled out. Past performance is a typical one I hope a lot of us know. Number 5, past performances that are required or that they're going to be thinking about, you can start talking about it early on. This is really valuable if you have good past performances, that you start saying, look, you need to have past performances that are this way, that represent this. And literally, you're basically describing your past performances. Now, in order for you to be able to get that in there, you've got to have good data and evidence that says why it's a legitimate requirement to get in, right? I'm not trying to bamboozle anybody, but I'm trying to get them to go, hey, you really need to think about the past performance requirement criteria that I'm saying, because when you have a company like ours that has this past performance and has done the work with this way, an example is, I've done a lot of software development, but I have never done ashore in the Navy and afloat, like going back and forth. I'm pretty sure I can do it. But if somebody had that experience and they come in, they'll discourage me. They'll certainly perhaps even knock me out, but they'll discourage me. And what the person who has that experience can do is to say, look, it's a completely different world to transfer software back and forth between the Navy installation and a submarine. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I mean, literally, it's not actually that hard. But when I think about it, and if I don't know it, it begins to discourage me. So you want to think about that same thing. Another way of thinking about past performance is to get user count or dollar volume up, right? So that the sizes are there. And of course, you can decrease these requirements as well. One of my favorite ones that you might try to do is oral evaluations, right? They're allowed to do this, and you can talk to whoever you're working with, the contracting officer, et cetera. But basically, as they go through this journey, what I would be trying to tell the customer is, hey, why don't you bring vendors in, even during market research, and say, come on in and talk with us. And in fact, have a loose conversation where we're talking about a particular case. And then as it moves forward, it can be even more tight. You might put in a proof of concept type requirement in the RFP process. But having oral evaluations where we're encouraging the customer to evaluate all of us vendors face to face. And the way we make that argument is to say, look, don't have a bait and switch. Don't have, somebody just write a proposal and then you find out no one can do the work. Talk to the people who are saying that they're going to be the key personnel, right? This happens, or the chances of you being able to do these kind of things happens the higher the dollar volume on the product is, or the opportunity is. But if you can get that in and you're really good at what you do, you will wow them. And you want to wow them. You want to impress them at any given chance. And if you think you're better than the competition, then you want to go toe to toe, right? Okay, number 7, tasks and subtasks, and number 8, deliverables. These are all kind of related, but just look at the RFP, right? Either look at the draft RFP if it's coming, or look at the previous RFP, and look at the way they write tasks and subtasks within there, and then look at the deliverables that they have. What I like to do in particular is put more stuff in. I like to make it like I want the government to hold us more accountable because we're just good at what we do. So what do we care? Right? So I want to put more of it in so it discourages other people who are just going to try to dabble into a requirement and go, oh, we can do that SharePoint thing. Yeah, but if I put it tougher and tougher and tougher, if I could say, here's why you want us to be able to give you a communication and a user adoption plan, right? I want to see a plan in your proposal that tells us how you're going to ensure adoption. It'll get rid of a lot of people who can just do the technology and aren't really good at the people interaction. And so that's a shout out to the software side of the house, where we really need to engage with the user, where if you install elevators, you don't really need to engage with the users as much. But getting those tasks and subtasks and deliverables shaped in a way that really play to what you've done in other places, allow you to wire these requirements. One of my all-time favorite things to do, if I can get it done, is to go into the government and convince them to do a much lower page count, right? For most people, it's very, very hard to write concisely. I'm forgetting who my quote, Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, if you want me to speak for an hour, I can get up on stage right now. But if you want me to speak for 1 minute, I'm going to need months of preparation. If you want me to speak for 1 month or 1 minute, I need months of preparation. If you want me to speak for an hour, I'll go up on stage right now. And I'm the same way, right? I can just come up and talk. And what it means is it's incredibly hard to be concise. And so if you can get number 10 here, if you can get the page count limit lower and say, hey, you don't really need a lot of pages to answer the question, can you do the work, right? And just try to bring it down 10, 15 pages. That's one of the ways you can discourage other people from responding, because they're like, wow, how can this happen? You know, if an opportunity's got 50 or 100 pages, then everybody's going to be putting stuff in. Number 11, I already mentioned. Number 12, just playing on the key personnel and the people. One of the things you might try to push is with the program office in particular, is helping them see number 12 as a need for requiring resumes and letters of commitment. So if somebody commits to this contract, if we win it, but having a resume, but encouraging them to have resumes, 10, 15 resumes. The more you put in there, the more you're going to discourage your competitor. And if you've got a good, strong team and staff or a bench that you can bring forward, if you're good at talent acquisition, then you want to make that a strength that you're putting into this. And you let the program office know that when you've got those resumes, there's a really good chance that this contractor who's awarded the contract is going to be able to start on day one. So those are just some ways that you can shape opportunities, wire the opportunities. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First off, BD and capture literally is about wiring an opportunity. Early on with BD, you're just getting to think about all your strengths, and then you begin to align it to opportunities. Number two, you can't do anything without relationships. Make sure you're reaching out, developing strategic relationships. I do a ton of teaching on that. And the third thing is make sure you understand the acquisition approach in the process for the agency you're going after, the contract shop that you're going after. If you've seen one contracting shop, you've seen one contracting shop, right? They all follow the FAR, but ask them, what's your acquisition approach, or what's your life cycle and your process? Can I see a roadmap? For everybody, as you move forward through the day, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.